Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Adam and welcome to this pre-sales workshop. Listen, when you're in the pre-sales zone, you are in the zone. You crush demos, you're inbox zero, effortless productivity. It is really a state of nirvana. But when you're out of the zone, everything becomes a chore. The value you can deliver really starts to plummet, and it's just not a great place to be in. Well, about 10 years ago, when I was running my first pre-sales team, I really wanted to have effective meetings, but over time, as we kept meeting, I noticed they were becoming much less effective. Our productivity in the meetings was awful. Our follow-up work lingered, and eventually it turned into just another meeting on the calendar that really was not providing any value. Does that sound familiar? Well, in our efforts to solve the problem, I explored a number of different solutions, but the one that stuck involved just a little bit of productivity science, which changed how we approach meetings and then re-energized our work, immediately changed the nature of those meetings. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's workshop. Today, I'd love to explore productivity versus capacity and how it can help shape this concept of smart timing in pre-sales. I want to also talk through a simple methodology of how to use and deploy smart timing tactics as an individual contributor or on a team. And I'll give you a live demonstration of a smart timing heat map tool that you can download and use in your pre-sales practice today. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's explore productivity versus capacity and set a baseline for how to think about this relative to smart timing. So productivity, what is it? It's just doing work, right? It's output over time. It's kind of like you're productive. I got to inbox zero. I crushed 3 demos before lunch. Yes, awesome. Now, capacity is your potential to do work at any given moment. So think of productivity as how much fuel you might burn. Capacity is like the size of your fuel tank. Now, as I dove into these concepts more, when we're trying to solve this problem of meeting effectiveness, I really started to see how productivity and capacity both need to work in harmony to be effective. And levels of both changed over time during the day, and they're also different for individuals across the team. So just to break that down, it's not just one peak level of productivity or peak level of capacity. It's actually multiple. There's multiple times throughout the day when, as an individual, like we're in the zone. And there's also multiple times when I just can't get anything done. And that was the light bulb moment. That was the moment where I started to understand that, hey, even though much of the schedule in pre-sales is really out of our control, we can control when we meet. And when we can control that, the next challenge is how do we best understand when the timing is right? So let's dive into that next. So how do we measure that capacity? Well, I'll introduce you to the concept of smart timing. Smart timing can be set up and understood by applying a simple methodology that allows you to track your capacity over time. Now, this can work for both individuals and teams, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So how do we implement this methodology? What is it? Well, first, you want to be able to gather that capacity level data over time. This means logging these levels as an individual throughout the day over a period of a week or so. Next, you want to analyze the data and look for patterns. Look for patterns that help you understand when is this capacity the highest, when is the capacity the lowest, and where is maybe that middle ground. Lastly, you can use these insights to shape your ideal schedule. For us, we found after we compared our capacity measurements, we found that meeting times were most optimal at the time of day when capacity was kind of situated between that idle, busy work and the red hot nuclear level, don't bother me, talk to me, tap me on the shoulder, I'm working kind of work. Now, for the team, it really varied over the course of a day and the course of the week. So what we ended up doing was changing the meeting time to actually move it from its original time in the morning, which was a mismatch of capacity, to a time where the team members were all sort of at that same level. Net, man, improved dramatically. In fact, we were able to reduce the number of meetings that we had because by that simple change, we made the meetings way more effective. Now, I mentioned this works for individuals as well. Personally, I still use this technique in my day-to-day just to validate peaks and valleys in my daily rhythms as well as my rhythms over the course of a week. So as you're tracking this productivity on a new schedule, don't worry, change things up as you need to. The goal here is to work smarter by synchronizing the right levels of capacity. And these will change throughout the day. They change throughout the week, throughout a month or a quarter. So don't worry. Just keep track of the productivity, optimize, observe, and adjust as needed. So let's dive into the whiteboard and I'll give you a demonstration of the smart timing tool. All right, everyone, let's jump on the whiteboard and I want to illustrate a couple of these concepts. Now, capacity can actually be measured out on a simple XY graph here. So if capacity is the y-axis and time is the x-axis, oftentimes you may even observe this in your own workday. You may start the day or at various points along the day find you have a ton of capacity in a short amount of time, but as time passes, that capacity ebbs and flows. Or maybe you have capacity that sort of ekes its way along and then maintains a level and then drops off and so on and so forth. But this illustration is something that accurately reflects the reality of our capacity and rhythm throughout the day. And that's what makes smart timing so effective. So if we wanted to measure this, then let's have a simple way of understanding and visualizing what this actually looks like. So we do that by generating a heat map. Now, the heat map is color-coded, so anything in red where you have a lot of capacity, that's called zone. That's the flow. That's the ultimate flow state. Now, orange and yellow are transitioning away from the zone. So if yellow is idle and orange would be midway. Green, hey, it takes more effort to actually try to work than do the work itself. So let's say that's effort. Yeah, lots of effort. And then black or gray, that is non-work. So by constructing a visual, you can clearly see patterns and tendencies over the course of a day, week, month, etc. Let's jump into the tool here and you can see what this actually looks like. By color coding over the course of your day, you can then track as an individual contributor, or you can compare and contrast across your team to find the best moments where you are actually going to have the most productive meetings possible. My recommendation is to have your meetings at some point where you're going to be the majority of your team is going to be sitting within orange or yellow. That gives you guys still enough focus to have really productive meetings, but you're not interrupting that ultimate flow state. Now, here's an example of what analysis looks like. This is actually my analysis, a recent one from 2023 on the left, as well as the original analysis that I contributed as part of our larger team analysis in 2014. There's a lot going on here, but a few things I wanted to point out. Starting with 2014, when I compared and contrasted my flow with other teammates' flows, what we decided was we had meetings that were typically scheduled right at this time, which, when we're dealing with a large team, that actually was a high capacity work time for folks on the team. What did we do? Shifted it later in the day. And that ended up being a really, really good move because we were able to refocus, still come to the meeting with plenty of energy, but we weren't distracted because we weren't naturally operating in a rhythm where we all needed to be doing that sort of nuclear level, don't touch me type of work. But if you look in 2023, some clear comparison contrasting elements from day to day, even hour to hour, are very apparent. For me personally, my highest capacity work is going to be in the first half of the day. I've also realized that when it comes to after lunch or early afternoon, I'm probably worthless. So anything that requires a deep amount of thought or a lot of focus, I know I can't do during that time of the day. Not only that, my patterns have stayed consistent from one day to the next, and even consistent within the same day in the same time period. So this type of analysis can be really effective as you're working on scheduling your own book of business, your own calendar as an individual contributor. And you can use this to compare and contrast across your teams and use this smart timing tool and smart timing heat map to more effectively plan and execute meetings that are really going to be effective for every team member. All right, let's close it out. Well, that's all the time we have for today's workshop. Thanks for joining me. Now, you can find the link to the original article originally written by productivity expert Charlie Gilkey back in 2008. I stumbled across it in 2014, and that was what spurred my journey into capacity and smart timing. I've included that in the supplemental information below in the show notes. Like and subscribe, smash those buttons down below on whatever platform you're watching. And if you download the tool, drop me a DM on LinkedIn, shoot me an email, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if it's helped you become more productive, you have better meetings, you take back control of your calendar, how it's working for you. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time right here in the workshop.